Are you excited for the 2024 Georgia Bulldogs football season? That's where we should start tonight. And one thing is for certain about tonight's broadcast. Tonight is a night that is a watershed moment for this channel this off season. Because from this show forward, all we're going to do is look at 2024. There is no rearview mirror from here on. Everything's forward. Eyes forward, one focus. That is what we're going to be about here. It's going to take different shapes, but that's what we're going to do. Welcome back into this week's edition of the How About That DawgsCast. And tonight, I thought we've already looked at the last season. We've put it to bed. We've taken a look at spring and the movement that's happened on the roster, who's on the team, who's not. That's finally set. So now we can officially point our eyes toward 2024. And that got me to thinking about which games on what is roundly considered one of the toughest schedules in the country, which games am I most excited about? And furthermore, which games are you most excited about? And I'm really just going to go off of what I've seen across my social media pages here on this channel and in the comments and conversations I've had with other Georgia Bulldog fans. And I sort of put all that in a pot and rolled it together and stirred it around for a little while. And tonight's list is what I came up with in terms of how I rank the games on the 2024 schedule as far as anticipation and excitement. Where would I put them? So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at that schedule. Like I said earlier, everybody who looks at this thing realizes that Georgia does not have an easy road to hoe this year. I mean, they open up with Clemson, going to be a ranked team. Then they have Tennessee Tech, first home game. Now we're looking at Kentucky. We've got Georgia Bulldogs that were on our team last year that are going to go play for Kentucky. And then we get to Alabama. Auburn's on the heels of that. We travel out to Austin to play Texas this year as a new member in the conference. Then there's the border rival with Florida. We have to travel to Ole Miss, which was a house of horrors for Georgia the last time they went in there. Tennessee is on the schedule this year. They're at Sanford Stadium. They think they might be able to do something. Then we play one of those late season out of conference games that nobody gets too fired up about. And we finish, of course, with Hate Week and Georgia Tech. So when I was looking at this 12-game schedule, which is challenging any way you cut it, it didn't take long for these games to sort of fall into place as far as what I considered to be the most exciting. And like I said, I filled in the gaps where I was unsure about the other games, and I took opinions from you guys, the viewers on this channel, the people who interact on the Facebook page and the Twitter pages when we're talking over on Instagram. I took all of that input and pulled it together, and tonight we're going to rank the games 12 down to 1. We're going to start with number 12, and we're going to go down to 1. As what I consider to be the most exciting or the most anticipated games of the 2024 season. So let's get to it. Now, again, I'm going to keep the schedule on the screen. You're going to see it, but that's not the order that we're going in, okay? That's the order in which the games are going to be played, but these are my rankings. So here on the back end, let's just begin. I think we can knock out the first two pretty quickly because number 12 is going to be UMASS. I mean, UMASS is coming off a season where they won 3 games last year. This game falls at the end of the schedule, right before Georgia Tech, which is that sort of week inside the conference. I really, if I had my druthers as a football fan, as an SEC fan, I would rather not see my team or any other SEC team schedule a game like this at that point in the season. I understand the way scheduling is done. These things are done years in advance. And these are not directional schools, but it's not far from it. And it's a guaranteed win for virtually every team in the conference. And a win is a win, I guess. But for the people who have tickets to this game that are going to be in Sanford Stadium on that day, I mean, it's hard to get excited about this game other than it is going to be hopefully on the stretch run of what is a push to another SEC title game appearance. So UMass comes in at number 12. Is all I can really say about it, but That's not what this night and this talk is about. Number 11 is going to be the other out-of-conference game, which doesn't appear to offer much in the way of resistance for Georgia. The reason I had to flip-flop these two games, and the reason Tennessee Tech came in at 11 instead of 12, because frankly, if I were just looking at the names of the schools, I might be more excited about UMASS. But Tennessee Tech comes in at number 11 simply because it is the first game between the hedges in 2024. It's going to be the first time that Dog Nation is going to have an opportunity to roll into Athens and see this edition of Kirby's Bulldogs up close and in person. And everybody wants to be back in Sanford as soon as possible to watch some more football. And that's what Tennessee Tech is going to offer the Dogs. So they check in at number 11. Number 10 is going to be Mississippi State. Now, I understand that's a conference game, and it's a game that falls at home, which is why it's just above Tennessee Tech, to be quite honest, because the team itself doesn't really appear to offer that much in the way of competition to Georgia this year. I'm always excited about an SEC victory when the Dogs can get one, but with a new coach coming in there, I guess there is a little bit of excitement around the game for Mississippi State, because we're all going to find out what Jeff Lebby's team looks like, what their offense looks like against an SEC opponent. It's still early in the year, so they're going to be fired up and believing that they have a chance. But this game, like I said, is at home between the hedges. They have a new head coach. They're going to have to overhaul what they've been trying to do the last couple of years. I really don't think this game is going to pose much of a bump in the road for Georgia. That's why it checks in at number 10 on my countdown of the most exciting games for 2024. Now, here is where we could really start to get into a little debate. And I want to encourage anybody watching this video to please go into the comments, drop a comment, let me know what you agree with and disagree with as far as my rankings are concerned, and then which game you are most excited for, or games. If you want to rank all 12, do all 12. If you just want to give me a top 3, go for that. Or if you just want to list your favorite game, that's fine too. But let me know who that opponent is, what game that is, and why you feel that way about it. So please do that in the comments. I'd love to see what you think. Because again, this is just my opinion based on what I have gathered from talking to you. So coming in at number 9 is going to be the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Now, I understand that if you are my age or older, you might look at this game and say that's way too low. Tech is always Georgia's top rival. Tech is always the most important game on the schedule. That may be your opinion. And it could be argued that you're right. It is the most important game because it's the in-state rival. That doesn't necessarily make it the most exciting game or the game I'm the most excited for, especially when I look at the rest of the schedule. So I guess I'm being disrespectful to Georgia Tech, but it's not like they haven't earned it with their play, especially their play against Georgia over the last handful of years to a decade. So I get that it's hate week. I get that it is one of Georgia's 3 traditional rivals. And I get that they are building things on the plains under their new head coach. With all that said, as much as I never want to lose to Georgia Tech again, they can only come in at number 9 on this list, on this schedule, in this year, as far as I'm concerned. The next 2 games are the kind of matchups that, to be completely honest, I took a poll here in my own household to see how these 2 games should shake out. And, full transparency, as it turned out, they agreed with me. So it's not like it changed the outcome of this in any way. But it is one of those things where you could literally flip a coin, and I think you'd be okay here, and you could make a good argument either way. But checking in at number 8, I'm going to go with Auburn. That's the game that I see falling in that spot. Because, yes, I get it. It's the Deep South's oldest rivalry. Now, if you've been around this channel for more than a hiccup, then you know that my number 1 rival is the Florida Gators. We can't beat Florida badly enough, often enough, as far as I'm concerned. Now, Mrs. Beast, though, she can't stand Auburn. For Auburn, it's the sort of thing that Well, let's just say this goes back a long way. This goes back to when I was a student at Georgia, way back in the late 90s, and we were in the stadium together watching the games. Auburn has always been just a pain in the foot as far as Mrs. Beast is concerned.
Auburn sucks.
And that's really where she wants to leave it. With all that said, though, in this schedule, I just couldn't put them any higher. I couldn't justify it. So I get that they are the Deep South's oldest rivalry. I get that Hugh Freeze has been doing work over there at Auburn. I understand that they believe that they are improving. I know that they think they're going to be able to score points this year. And based on everything I just said about the way Mrs. Beast feels about Auburn, I am confident in sharing with you that this is still a game that elicits a lot of fire and a lot of hate from me. I mean, when I watch it, I don't want to miss this game ever. I want to watch this game every time it's played. It's a traditional classic rivalry inside the conference and for our Dogs. But this schedule is not your normal schedule. We have new players in the game, and based on where Auburn is right now, they check in at number 8. Now, like I said, you could flip a coin in this position on the schedule about which team might come in at number 7. For me, it's the Kentucky Wildcats. Now, I know it seems like Kentucky builds their schedule every year to where they race out to a 4 or 5-0 start, and then on the back end, they seem to come apart, right? Based on a myriad of things. And everybody wants to hype them up about what they've been able to do up there under Stoops. They are a hard-nosed football program. But the thing that makes this matchup interesting, and frankly the reason they got the nod over Auburn to check in at number 7, is because of what happened in the offseason this year. There are going to be some old dogs learning new tricks as they head up to the Bluegrass to play for the Kentucky Wildcats this year. And this is a game that Georgia has to go on the road to play. So that makes it a little bit more interesting because Auburn is at home. So you have old dogs learning new tricks in a new place. It's a conference game, and Georgia has to go on the road to play it. All of those things tip the scales toward Kentucky to put them ahead of Auburn as far as my most exciting games for 2024. Now, I mentioned earlier that Florida is my traditionally most hated rival. That's the game that I want the Dogs to win more than any other every year. That's where the season starts for me. On the checklist of things that have to happen for Georgia to have an effective season, a season that I will be pleased with, just speaking for myself, beat Florida is the number one priority, without fail, every season. That goes back to one, Steve Spurrier, my relationship with him when I was in school. Let's just say I'm forever scarred as a Gen Xer against the Florida Gators. And Kirby and the Dogs can beat them 50-0 every year. And I will love every blasted minute of it. I will not turn away. I will record the game and watch it over and over and over. Okay? So I don't want to get in trouble saying something on here that's not family friendly, but let's just say I don't care for Florida at all. So I'm putting them at number 6 on this list. I guess if I were being gentle and kind to the Gators, I could mix them in with Kentucky and Auburn maybe. We could have shuffled this around a little bit right here. You could make an argument for that. And again, I want you to. Underneath the video here, I want you to drop it in there and let me know how you would rank these games, which game you're looking forward to most. But for me, Florida comes in at number 6, right smack dab in the middle. I would love to put them higher, but as I've said, this is not your normal schedule. I mean, the Florida game, there's so much tradition around that game being on the road. There's so much hatred involved from both sides. And when I say hatred, I mean, I never want to speak for anyone else, but it is the kind of game that just based on what players have said after they've played in the series, it seems to mean a little bit more, even when Florida is not at the top of their game. And that's going to be one of the headlines heading into this season. What they're trying to do down there under Bill Napier is rebuild that program because the way it was left was a complete disaster. And frankly, I don't know if Napier's going to make it through this season. And this is around the time of year when Napier may have already gotten his pink slip if things don't go well for Florida early in the year. So they're definitely going to be on head coach watch as we head down to Jacksonville to take them on. And frankly, if the Dogs roll down there and hang 52 on them and put the nail in his coffin, that's fine with me. I will giggle and just watch him pack his stuff and get on out of there and see who they come up with next to try to challenge Kirby and the Dogs in this rivalry. So Florida's at number 6. Now, looking across the schedule, you can see we're starting to count these things down, and you may start to wonder who's going to go where, because we've already had some of the heavy-hitting names on this list. Tech, Florida, Auburn. I've already gone through them. So a quick recap as we're halfway through. UMASS I have at 12, Tennessee Tech at 11, Mississippi State at 10. I put the Yellow Jackets at 9. Auburn checks in at 8, Kentucky at 7, and Florida at 6. So now we are moving into our top 5. And I think this deserves a little bit of a switch up here, because what we're going to do is take a look at the Tennessee Volunteers. Now, I understand that Tennessee is one of those programs that thinks they are the new hot thing every single season over the last 10 or 15 years. And every year they seem to disappoint. Then Josh Heupel shows up. They win a game or two that they think they shouldn't have won. And all we heard as Georgia fans was what was going to happen when Georgia played Tennessee. Well, as you know, recent history has just dropped a hammer on all of that. If you're a Georgia Bulldogs fan thinking about the Tennessee Volunteers, it's hard for us these days to take them too seriously. So you may ask, why are they at 5? Well, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. That's the biggest reason I have them at 5. And again, going back to when I was at school, Tennessee was one of those programs that they really had a nice run against Georgia. I believe the streak was 8 games, and they were trying to win 9 in a row when Quincy Carter and the Dogs beat them back in 99, I believe it was. Was it 99 or was it 2000? I forget exactly. But the streak right there, I lived through watching Tennessee take Georgia's best players out of the state in the recruiting game. I lived through watching Tennessee disrespect Georgia's hedges when they came to Athens. I lived through that stretch of watching Philip Fulmer and his pumpkin-looking self walk out of matchups with my Dogs the victor. And it just irked me. Not the way Spurrier and Florida did, but a very, very close second. So there's a little bit of personal flavor here is why I have Tennessee ranked so high as a game I am very excited to see. But there are other justifying factors here, namely the fact that they have a brand new quarterback that they believe is going to be the guy to lead them back to the top of the conference. Now, there's a lot more involved with playing successful, winning football than having one player. We all know that. And frankly, I don't think Tennessee has the pieces that they need to do that. We hear a lot about Josh Heupel and his offense and what it is. But essentially, it's nothing that seems to be puzzling to Kirby Smart or Glenn Schumann. And the Dogs have put the clamps on Tennessee in that high-flying offense every time they face them. I don't really think any of that's going to change. I think Georgia wins this game, and I think they win it handily, especially because it is in Athens. But I understand if you might question this or move Tennessee a little bit further down, you might not feel as interested in this game as I do. But that's how I feel about Tennessee. I do think that they're building. I do think that they're getting more and more pieces for Heupel to work with. And frankly, my opinion is still unformed on this new quarterback. But I am very interested in seeing what he's going to look like, how he's going to handle being in Athens, and what surprises that Kirby Smart and Schumann have in store for this freshman. Well, I guess he's going to be a sophomore. I'm not sure how he's classified. Either way, this is going to be his first year as the starter. So I'm very interested to see what's going on with him. And that's why I have Tennessee at number 5 as the games I am most looking forward to. So moving right along, the next team that I want to talk about is Ole Miss. I understand that Georgia, when Ole Miss rolled in this past season, put a hammer and a hurting on the Ole Miss Rebels and Lane Kiffin. And Lane Kiffin knows it too. He stood on the sideline, and after the game, he was asked, why can't you compete with this team? I'm paraphrasing, but essentially he said, their team doesn't look like my team. We are not ready to play at this level of football against a team as talented as Georgia, with players like Georgia has. Now, this was a team that was a top 10 program at the time Georgia put the beat down on them last time. The last time Georgia went out to Mississippi to play this game, Hugh Freeze was the head coach at Ole Miss, and Kirby's Dogs took it on the chin, and it was not pretty. They were never in that game. It was an early kickoff. I think the Dogs lost by something like 30 points. It was very, very ugly if you were a Georgia fan. That was a lifetime ago. Like I said, Lane Kiffin has this team, has his players, has his fans believing that he is going to get big things done with Ole Miss this year. And if you have Ole Miss as a preseason top 10 team, I am not going to bat an eye at that, just simply based off of what they have done in the offseason. The one thing that Kiffin has done is tried to fix the problem he saw in Athens last season. He went out and tried to essentially buy himself a defense and get the sort of bodies on campus for Ole Miss that they think they need to be able to compete with a program like Georgia. Now, we're going to find out if that's true or not. He also got his quarterback to come back. He's got a couple of talented wide receivers. Mississippi, as I just said, could very easily be a top 10 preseason team. Georgia has to travel on the road. As if the roster overhaul and all the sparkle and splash that comes along with what Kiffin did in the offseason, as if that wasn't enough, Georgia has to head west and go back out to Mississippi to play this game. I have no predictions on what time they're going to kick this thing off, but it doesn't really matter. By this point in the season, this is going to be the kind of game, much like it was last year, where we're going to have a pretty good feel about who Georgia is. And when that game gets here, we may or may not have the same level of excitement that I have right now. But looking down the schedule and thinking about which games fall where out of these 12, I'm perfectly comfortable and confident with placing Ole Miss at number 4 on my countdown of the most exciting games sitting here in the offseason as we look ahead to 2024 for the Georgia Bulldogs. So that brings us to the top 3. Are you ready? The Clemson Tigers check in at number 3. Now, I know, believe me, I know that this is a traditional rivalry. It is a very fun game to play from a Georgia fan's perspective. Over the history of the matchup, Georgia has dominated the Clemson Tigers. And frankly, that's been a lot of fun to watch. And in recent years, let's just give them, inside the last decade, Clemson was considered to be one of the top programs in college football. They might not be what they once were, but many people believe that Clemson is building their way back to that status. I don't count myself among them. So you might say, Randy, why are they in your top 3 if you're going to talk them down the way you are? Well, let's look at this game on its face. It's the season opener. It is a prime time, everybody's going to be watching sort of game. This is one of those games that announces college football is back. And what better way to do it than to put these two very, very familiar helmets against each other in a matchup that everybody's going to be able to watch. This won't be regional. This is a national broadcast. Everyone will point to this game as one of their most exciting games of the season. For us on this schedule, which tells you a little bit about what this schedule is for the Dogs, I have them simply at number 3. Now, we can get into breaking the game down further as we get closer. But right now, here's why they're at number 3. It's the season opener. Who's not going to be ready for some college football? It is a tone setter for the rest of the season. If you don't believe me, I know the coaches are going to tell you that it doesn't matter who they play in week 1. And to them, they could very well be telling the truth. But I promise you, a player is going to look up and see which helmet, which logo is on there to open the season. And if it's Clemson, that is going to be a different response than if it were, say, Tennessee Tech or UMASS in that opening game. Human nature. You can deny it all you want. You can be a professional and think about it in the appropriate way, that every game counts the same. But this is the kind of game, again, that is going to be a splash opportunity for this edition of the Georgia Bulldogs. If you need to be reminded of what that might look like, simply think back to 2021, the Oregon game in the Georgia Dome. Both teams were fired up for that game. Everybody was high on Oregon, thinking they might come in and give Georgia something to mess with, give them a little bit of trouble. And then what happens? The Dogs went out and ate their lunch, dinner, and dessert and announced to everybody that that team was a team that needed to be looked out for across college football for the duration of the season. So don't think for 1 second that this game's not a big one. Now, having said all of that, you have to know that there's only 2 slots left. Which one's going to be number 1? Which one's going to be number 2? As far as I'm concerned, the University of Texas, when Georgia has to travel out there middle of the season, that game is going to be my number 2 most anticipated game. The game I am second most excited about for Georgia to go play. And I don't want to rush through this. I want to break it down and give you a good reason why. I mean, obviously, this is a helmet game. This is a clash between 2 programs that are iconic, both in their performance on the field and in their brand recognition. There's no 2 ways about that. So you could put everything else aside and just be like, yeah, I want to watch that game just because you see the names. That's it. That's enough reason to watch it. But if you look just a hair deeper, you're going to see that this game has a lot more to offer us as Georgia fans as we look into the season. I mean, Texas and Oklahoma are joining the conference this year. This is a brand new world. If that wasn't enough, this is also the season that the playoff is going to expand to 12 teams. So now every game is going to take on a different look and a different feel for what it means, regardless of what your team does in any given game on any given Saturday. When I look at Texas, again, I'm excited just to play this game, and I'm excited that they get to go on the road to do it. But Texas, I think we all can agree, is a team that is going to be a contender both inside the conference to make an appearance in the conference championship game and also for the 12-team playoff. If those things aren't true, then Sarkisian is going to be hearing it in the offseason. That's what's going to happen in Texas. So many Texas people that I talk to truly believe that they are going to walk into this conference and dominate from day one. Now, I don't think that's true. And I think that one of their first appearances against one of the conference's best is going to help them realize that that's not the case. The Dogs are in a position where, in a couple of places on the schedule in this 2024 season, where when we think about the playoff, not only could they play in the regular season, they could have a matchup in the conference title game should both teams do their part and earn their way to get there. And the potential exists that both of those teams in the conference title game could then make the playoff and have a third meeting in one season. So after going years and years and years without playing Texas, the possibility, at least, exists that the Dogs could play Texas 3 times this season. Now, at first blush, I'm not even sure if I love that or hate it. But the bottom line is, this will be the first matchup of what could be 3 times that these two teams will square off here in 2024. So with all that coloring this game, with all the pageantry and tradition, with all of just simply the marquee shine that this game provides, plus all the playoff and conference championship ramifications that are rolled up in it, not to mention the amount of NFL level talent that will be on the field in this game, all of that rolled together puts this game at number 2 on my most anticipated games for 2024. And like I said, there is a very real possibility that regardless, win or lose this game, Georgia could end up facing Texas again in the conference championship game. I think that's a bet that a lot of people are going to make, that those two teams will end up there. So, yeah, there's a lot riding on this game when these two tangle a little bit later this year. So that means there's only one team left. You all know the answer. It has to be the Alabama Crimson Tide. That has to be the game that I'm most excited about. And I really went back and forth on this one. I truly did. This was not a slam dunk. It was going to be Texas or it was going to be Alabama. That was going to be my number 1. And then I had to start parsing out, why would I choose Texas? And frankly, if you really dig into it and look at it, you might be able to just flip-flop every point that I'm about to list here for why Alabama is my number 1 and Texas is my number 2. But you got to put them in some order, and this is how it shook out for me. So why is Alabama number 1, the game I am most excited about seeing here in 2024? Well, let's think about it this way. There's been a lot of discussion on this channel and other places about the top program in college football over the last couple of years. Now, if you've been here, again, longer than a hiccup, you understand that I firmly believe that over the last 3 to 5 years, choose your snapshot, that Georgia is the top program in college football. For those of you who might not have heard me say this before, I just want to take this opportunity to point out that program and team are not the same. So, for instance, in 2023, neither Alabama or Georgia won the national championship. You could make an argument, though, for either one of those teams to be the top program in the sport right now. I have made my argument in the past many times over, to the chagrin of many, many Alabama fans, about why I think that Georgia is the top program in the country right now. But if we're being honest, think about what I just said. You could argue this either way. Alabama, you could make a good argument that they still are the top program in college football. Obviously, I feel Georgia could be. So essentially what you have here is a little bit of the Spider-Man meme, where they're both sort of pointing at each other about like, no, who are you? Because if we're being brutally honest, I understand neither of these teams won the national championship in 2023. But that doesn't matter. We don't care. We just don't. Nobody in the South, nobody in the Southeastern Conference, nobody who follows Deep South college football cares that Michigan took home the trophy. Because the only two teams, or the only team that either of these teams have cared about or worried about or tried to keep up with over the last 3 to 5 seasons has been the other one. The only team that Alabama has been worried about has been Kirby Smart's Georgia Bulldogs in Athens. The only team that Kirby Smart is trying to beat back as a team that he knows is going to be a direct competitor for everything he wants to accomplish in Athens is the Alabama Crimson Tide. And I hope that if Alabama fans are watching this, you're hearing what I'm saying. This is not a channel where I disrespect Nick Saban or Alabama. I don't do that. In fact, I go out of my way to give them flowers. Doesn't change the fact, though, that in my opinion, and the opinion of most of the college football world, the top program in the sport right now is the Georgia Bulldogs. The road to the championship is going to run through Athens. Everybody knows that. So yeah, these two teams have been going back and forth here for the last handful of years, and that speaks directly to this recent history. This recent history is why this game has to be the most exciting game for me as we head into the 2024 season. I said I went back and forth, and I did. I'm not lying to you people. You know me. But at the end of the day, I think we all know. That's how I felt. Deep down, I knew that the game I was most excited about was going to happen in the fourth game of Georgia's 2024 season. It's going to be different. Nick Saban is gone. As much as Alabama fans hate it, that's the reality. Now, I'm not a person who is going to look at that situation and tell you that Alabama is going to fall off the table. I don't believe that at all. I simply don't. If for no other reason, when you have a machine that's as big as a top-tier college football program, you would have to purposefully try to undermine, overturn, and dislocate everything inside that program to make it fall apart. Now, we all know that Kalen DeBoer is not going to do that. It's sort of like the Titanic. It's moving in one direction. It's going to continue to move in that direction. Alabama is going to be a very good football team. They are going to be very talented. And they are going to have a lot to say about what happens inside the conference as well as in the 12-team playoff. I fully believe that. If Alabama were to lose, say, more than 3 games this season, then you really ought to question Kalen DeBoer. Because, again, it seems like you would have to purposefully try to mess it up to lose more than 3 if you're Alabama right now. Now, longer term, we'll see. Because, again, for this year, maybe next year, the program is still sort of moving in the general direction that it has been moving in. But as DeBoer gets his people in there, makes his decisions on game day, fills out his culture, all those sorts of things, we're going to find out more about that program. But for right now, I think you're a little foolish to sort of toss Alabama aside. Saban's gone, and it's going to be different. But Alabama and the program is not just going to disappear overnight. Poof, and they're gone. That's just not how it's going to play out. They're not going to fall off the table. They're certainly not going to run and hide because they have a new coach. And Georgia fans should just get ready for that. So they are going to be ready to welcome the Dogs in. And trust me, ask any Alabama fan. When the Dogs roll in there, they will 100% believe that not only are they going to win, that they absolutely should win. Nick Saban or no Nick Saban. So they do not lack for confidence, at least among the fan base. So as a Georgia fan, on the other side of that, of course that gets your hackles up a little bit. You're like, my program, my team has done this, this, and this. Look at the track record. Don't forget the national title. So yeah, on the field and off, this Georgia-Alabama matchup is going to be a special one. And it's going to happen in the first month of the season. And that just adds fuel to the fire for why I'm excited about Georgia-Alabama in 2024. But I can give you one more thing. And this one's going to cut a little bit closer to the bone for some of us Georgia people. Whether it's fair or not, this Alabama game is a big game for Kirby Smart. He took Georgia into Alabama back in 2020. And I understand, say what you want about 2020, but the fact of the matter is, Georgia's quarterback situation was a mess at that point. They didn't know who it was going to be. Stetson played that night. You had one night one half of good Stetson and another half of bad Stetson, and it didn't go Georgia's way. And that Alabama squad went on to win the national title. So clearly that was a good team that the Dogs lost to that night. But any Alabama fan will tell you, give them half a breath, and they will tell you, regardless of what Georgia has done, is doing, regardless of what they win, they will not hear anything other than to put their fingers in their ears and rattle off Kirby Smart's record against Nick Saban during his time in Athens. That point isn't even relevant half the time to the conversation that we as Georgia fans are trying to have, but that is the only conversation that Alabama fans seem to want to have, because at this point, given that they haven't won a national championship since 2020, given that Kirby Smart defeated Nick Saban to win his first national title and give Nick his final opportunity at a national title a big thumbs down, given the fact that Georgia has dominated the sport over the last 3 seasons, in some cases, Alabama fans are reaching for things that they can hang their hat on. And one of those things is their record against Georgia with Kirby as the head coach. Fair enough, the results are what they are. But to only think about that is not the right way to think about it. I get it. That's what you want to hang your hat on. Perfect. But you're being blind to the greater picture here. Now, again, that's a Georgia person saying that. Program versus team, right? You can't see the forest for the trees. It's a matter of perspective. With all that said, though, this is a big game for Kirby Smart. May not be fair, but he needs to go into Tuscaloosa this year, and he needs to win this game. Now, I don't know that I'm going to be somebody who is pounding on the table telling you that as we get closer to this game. I'm saying it now because we're far enough away from the game that we all know people are going to say that. They're going to say, Kalen DeBoer's new coach, Alabama got hurt in the transfer portal, Georgia is Georgia, Georgia is on this new level now, and we expect Georgia to go win this game if they are who we think they are. I promise you, that will be the talk in the run-up to this game. So from a national perspective, just from a PR media perspective, not that there's anything he has to prove, but Kirby needs to win this football game. That's going to be the opinion that you hear leading up to it. Again, may not be fair, but it is the reality. If Kirby wins it, then of course, the Alabama people are going to have to endure all of the same sort of national media conversation about who they are, where they're headed, all of that sort of thing. If the Dogs were to lose, well, then, of course, Kirby's going to have to hear, why can't you beat Alabama, especially when they have a new head coach and there's new things happening. You know the drill. If you've been watching football, college football, for any amount of time, you know this song and dance. You know how it's going to go. So I guess I'm just saying get ready for it. Because regardless of which side you end up on in this thing, it's going to be bitter to hear people talk about your team that way. But that is exactly why I am excited to see Georgia play Alabama there in the first week of the season. I mean, who knows what the season's, holds for us. This is a wonderful schedule. It's very, very difficult. But, of course, as Georgia fans, we want to see more of this. Championship in 21. Championship in 22. And now we want to know what is going to shake out for 2024. I know what's shaking out here on the channel, and that is that we are thankful you are here, and we are grinding to be the best we can be for you. We are on our way to 10,000 here on YouTube, so if you haven't subscribed, I hope we did a good enough job tonight. Please hit the thumbs up and give us a chance. Give us a sub, hang out, come back and see us. We'll continue to try to be worthy of that subscription. That's the only way I want it. I trust you guys to know what to do there. As far as podcasts are concerned, yes, this is a podcast. Yes, it is available in audio only format. Go to your favorite podcast provider. Give us a rating over there. Download the podcast. Take it with you anywhere you go, everywhere you go, and stay on top of what's happening with Georgia football. And how about that DawgsCast? Don't forget, you can sign up for the newsletter. It costs you nothing. I will not send you an email. I will not sell your information to anyone at any time. I will not reach out to you unless I have news worthy of reaching out for. And I promise you, that is one thing that you can always hold my feet to the fire about. You will not get anything from me unless it's worthy. So go ahead and sign up for it. It won't cost you anything to do that and stay on top of what's happening. And tonight is a special sort of preemptive night, because tomorrow we usually only do one show a week live, but this week we're going to do two. And tomorrow night, I'll have the fellas from TikTok come on over here with me. Let me know what's happening in the world of TikTok, what's going on in the Georgia conversation over on that side of social media. It's a pretty cool thing that we like to do here on the channel. We only do it once a month, and if you haven't checked it out, I hope you'll give us a chance and come and see what we're up to tomorrow. It should be a lot of fun. This is the point where I will absolutely say thank you to each and every person who chooses to support this channel and our efforts by becoming a member of the channel. If you haven't done so and you think you like what we're doing and you want to support what we're doing over here, you can do so just by looking in the description below. There's a link that will take you right to show you what you can get as a member of the channel, fun emojis and things like that. We thank you for your support, and we certainly could not do this to the level we do it without that support. So everybody, thank you so much for being here with us again this week. I am excited about this season. I hope I painted the picture for you the best I could. And again, go right beneath this video, right down here, and leave a comment and let me know, how would you rate the games this season? 1 to 12, 12 to 1, however you want to do it. Or at least give me your top 3. If that's too much work, just give me your favorite game, the one you're most excited about seeing in 2024. Leave it in a comment below here on this video, because I would love to hear how you feel about it. That's all we have for this week. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of your friends, take care of your families, and go Dogs!
Told him, how about them fucking dogs? That's what I told him.